Welcome to the Sage Video On Demand presentation, Automate Your Process within Sage CRM. After viewing this session, you will have a better understanding of how easy it is to configure Sage CRM's process engine. Let's take a look at our topics. First, we'll do a demonstration of Sage CRM's process engine. We'll then do an example configuration of an opportunity workflow. So we'll go into the existing workflow for opportunities and we'll add a rule. We'll configure that rule, we'll place the rule in the workflow tree, and then we'll demonstrate that actual rule being used inside of the process. We've now switched over to Sage CRM. Within Sage CRM, I've logged in as administrator. I'm going to go now choose a company. I'm going to click on Recent. Once I click on Recent, I'm going to choose Mr. Ronald Black. After choosing Ronald Black, I'm then going to right click on New, and I'm going to create a new opportunity here. So I click on New Opportunity. At this point, I'm going to complete the required fields for the opportunity. The first field will be the description. We'll call it something basic, demo of workflow. Then the details will be demonstration of workflow engine. Now, additional fields that need to be required are assigned to. So we'll change this to the system administrator. That's who I'm logged in as. When do we expect this to close by? We'll say by the end of the month. And then at this point, there are no additional required fields, so I'll click on Save. That saves the opportunity, and it's automatically associated to the company and the person that I was in the context of. So that was Ronald Black, and then Mr. Black, the individual person. So the first thing I'll show you is we're immediately presented with an option to configure the system with workflow. So we have qualify, proposal submitted, and reassign. These are the steps that we first have access to as a regular user of the system. So I'm going to click on qualify because I've spoken to the person that I'm working with in relation to this opportunity, and I'm going to say that I've qualified them. I'll record a note, and I'll click on Save. So what we've seen is our first workflow process that says qualified, and we were presented with several screen values that we have to populate. So the main area that workflow focuses on is the status area. So as a result of that, the workflow buttons on the right allow me to update the status area of this opportunity. As a regular user, I do not have the ability to update this area unless I use the workflow buttons. So that's just a basic example of what actually happens with workflow. Now we can go ahead and go to the next step. We can say negotiating. Click on that. We have additional values we have to put in. We have a certainty. We have a forecast value. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I've spoken to them and I know what they're looking for. So they're looking for products worth about $5,000. So I'll populate the forecast with that, and I'll click on Save at this point. So now you've seen me go through two steps in the process of the workflow. That information that I've changed has been recorded into the tracking area of the actual opportunity related specifically to the items I've selected. So I first started out by creating the opportunity. I've then said it was qualified, and now I'm saying we're at the point of negotiating, and we're speaking about dollars and cents here in the opportunity. Now at this point, let's go actually take a look at what we can actually do with workflow and what we can customize or configure. If we go over to administration, within administration, we actually have the ability to change the workflow that we were just looking at. So to do that, we have to go to an area called Advanced Customization. Within that area is an option called Workflow. I'll click on Workflow, and now we're presented with an option that says Opportunity, Case, Lead, or Solution Workflow. I'll click on the Opportunity Workflow. Within the opportunity workflow, I now have access to the workflow that I was actually using as a user just a couple of seconds ago. So if I scroll down here, you can see that I have access to all of the different separate sections of the workflow. I'll hit F11 on the keyboard. That gives me the ability to see more area of Sage CRM at one time. So what I want to do is edit this workflow just to show you what we have access to. So I hit on Edit. Once I click that, now I have the ability to edit this workflow. The first step we actually see is New Opportunity. When I right-clicked on New and chose Opportunity, this is the button I was actually clicking on, was actually a workflow action. Right below that, once we created the opportunity, was Qualify, Proposal Submitted. We also had Reassign because that was a global rule. So those were the three actions I had. I clicked on Qualify. At the point of clicking on Qualify, I had to fill in some certain fields. After doing that and clicking on Save, I then got presented with 4 more options, which were Negotiating, Proposal Submitted, Demo, and Reassign, because it shows up every time because it's a global rule. Now at this point, I'm at Proposal Submitted, Sold, or Reassign because I clicked on Negotiating. So that's the steps, and you can see how we can step through each one of those. When I clicked on Qualify, I got presented 3 fields: the assigned to, what stage, and what status I was actually being put into. And these are the fields that we actually have the ability to customize and control. When I clicked on Negotiating, I actually had the ability to see the fields of certainty, forecast, and stage. These were the only 3 fields I had the ability to actually alter because they were the only 3 fields at that step that I was allowed to change. So you can see with workflow, I can completely control the process and the user experience every time a user clicks on a button within the process of workflow. So if I reactivate this, we're at the step of negotiating, so we should have proposal submitted, sold, and reassign that global rule. So if I go back to my main menu, I now see I have proposal submitted, sold, and reassigned, just as we saw in the workflow tree. This is where we're at. So at this point, we'd now like to actually go in and do the second part of the demonstration, which is actually adding a step at this point in the workflow process. So to do this, we'll have to go back and customize the system under administration. And to do this, we have to go over to administration. So I click into administration. Again, we have to go to advanced customization and then workflow. I know I was already there, but I want to show you how to get there every time. So underneath workflow, we'll then choose opportunity. And then within opportunity, we're going to choose edit. So now what I want to do is I actually want to add a rule, and that rule is going to come in down here at this step in the process. So we want to create a new rule. We'll call it whatever we like, and we'll start by first clicking on the new rule button. So I'm going to click on new rule. We're going to call this rule second demo. So I'll type in second demo. And you can see at the top, I have opportunity available here. So that's the opportunity or the entity that we're inside of. I'm going to make it available for cloning. I'm going to make sure the rule is enabled. And this is going to be called second demo. It's going to be a transition rule. And I can click on save at this point. So now I actually have that rule built, but I haven't actually put anything inside of it yet. So let's take a look at one of the other ones that have already been built, and that's demo. When I click on demo, you can see it's setting the certainty, the description, the forecast, and the stage. So we're going to use some of these similar values in our rule. So certainty will be one of them. So we'll go to second demo. We'll come down here at the bottom. We'll click on new. We're going to set a column value. And we're going to set the certainty. We select certainty, and we'll say, well, you know what, we're doing a second demo. We're going to say the certainty is going to be 50%. And we're not going to allow the user to be able to change this, so we're going to make it read-only. We'll click on Save. We'll then present the description. So we'll set the column value, or actually this time we'll display the field. And we're just going to show the description, oppo_description. And we're going to make it required, and they can update it if they want to. So we'll click on Save at this point. Okay, now we want to add in forecast. So we're going to click on New. We're going to display that field again, and we're going to choose Forecast. And we're going to say Required. Now the reason we're displaying this field is so that the user can actually update the value they may already have there. And then the last one that we're going to perform is we're going to add in stage. So I click on New. I then say Display Field. and we're going to allow them to set this at this point. So we're going to choose display field, make sure that's selected, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to choose stage. We'll scroll down to stage, and we'll make this required, and we'll click on save at this point. So now we've got all four values: the certainty, the description, the forecast, and the stage. So now I'll save this rule. Now that rule has been saved, I want to actually add it into the workflow process. So to do that, I have to scroll down to the area where I want to add it. Here's my rule. It says second demo. There it is right there. I'm going to drag it over to the circle at the bottom of negotiating. So now I have second demo as a rule. Every rule has to lead to a valid state. So we're going to say we're going to take it back to demo, which allows us to go back through the workflow process if we need to. So now I have three steps available: proposal submitted, sold, second demo, and don't forget our fourth step of reassign, because that's a global rule that's at the top. So at this point, I'm going to click on save. That saves my workflow, saves all my changes. I'm then going to also click on activate. That makes that activated workflow available. I can now go back to my main menu, and on my main menu, if I refresh the screen by clicking on Summary tab, I now have my second demo rule available. And this rule wasn't here a second ago when we went in, but now it is. So if I click on second demo, I now have the values, the certainty we set. I'm allowing the user to change the demo of workflow description. I can update the forecast, and I can set the stage at this point. I'll go ahead and say, you know what, we're already back at demo, so we're going to change that. We'll click on save. And now we've gone through the workflow process, and now we have the options of proposal submitted, sold, reassign, negotiating. Let's now look at what we've done here in our overview. We've done a demonstration of the Sage CRM process engine. We've shown you an example of how to configure the opportunity workflow by adding a rule, configuring that rule. We then place that rule in the tree, and then we did a demonstration of what that rule actually has available for us to do. So if you have any questions, or you're a current Sage CRM customer and like to know more information about this, please reach out to us at 1-877-237-5786 or reach us at sales.acpac@sage.com. I'd like to thank you for attending our video on demand presentation of Automate Your Process within Sage CRM.